Long before the Black Death, a system was already draining the world dry. This was not chaos, it was a coordinated structure that stretched from Mongol war camps to Venetian counting houses. Traders and conquerors built a network that moved silver, gold, slaves and grain while draining the strength of the very societies it fed on. This is not the story of Marco Polo's travels, it is the story of how a shared engine of plunder reshaped the world and how that engine collapsed under the weight of its own success. Venice did not conquer with swords, it conquered with intelligence, finance and positioning. As Peter Jackson states in The Mongols in the West, Venetian merchants were quick to exploit the commercial possibilities offered by the Mongol Empire. Indeed, Venice aligned with the Mongol Khans, embedding itself as their most important Western partner. This was not a passive relationship. Through embassies, commercial treaties and information networks, Venice helped facilitate Mongol campaigns while profiting from the destruction. The Mongol Empire shattered the old geography of Eurasia. The Pax Mongolica opened vast overland routes from China to the Black Sea. From Baghdad to Aleppo to Buda, cities that stood in Venice's way found themselves destabilized, destroyed or eclipsed. This was not an empire by conquest, it was an empire by leverage. Luxury goods filled the hulls of Venetian galleys, but they were never the endgame. Venice's true prize was bullion. The city became the clearinghouse for a global exchange of metals. From the mines of Mali and Sudan came African gold, funneled through Egypt and into Venetian hands. From the east came Mongol gold, acquired through war, tribute and trade. Venice acted as the pivot point, exchanging this gold for European silver, textiles, glassware and military technology. But gold did more than enrich. It informed strategy. Access to bullion meant influence over which markets thrived and which collapsed. Venetian merchants had mastered something far more durable than silk via financial instruments. Bills of exchange, marine insurance and forward contracts allowed them to move capital across continents. With these tools they underwrote risk while collecting returns from trade that spanned from Cathay to Cairo. Venice became the central hub of Eurasian credit, extending liquidity into Mongol-controlled cities and insulating itself from the volatility that crushed other states. As historian Frederick C. Lane documents in Money and Banking in Medieval and Renaissance Venice, the city's financial policies were never designed to promote general economic welfare. Venice regulated its bullion flows, monopolised coinage and maintained strict control over its mint, not to stabilise the economy but to preserve oligarchic power. The goal was not economic balance but asymmetry. Control of money meant control of markets, credit, purchasing power and political leverage. Even when the major Florentine banks allegedly failed in the 1340s, as we considered here, Venice's unique grip on the bullion trade allowed its oligarchs to thrive. Its survival came not from resilience but from dominance. From the late 13th century onward, Venice acted as both a broker and beneficiary of Mongol expansion, especially in the Black Sea region. The destruction of cities and the fragmentation of rival powers created not only new markets but also massive pools of captives. Venice helped turn these victims into assets. The Mongols supplied bodies, Venice supplied ships, logistics and demand. Slave markets in Tana, Azov and Kaffa exploded in scale, processing thousands of captives each year. Slavs, Kipchaks, Alans and Circassians were sold into servitude in Egypt, Anatolia and across the Italian peninsula. The trade was not limited to labour. Eunuchs, concubines and domestic servants formed a secondary market, serving courts and elites. This slave trade peaked under the Pax Mongolica. Venetian merchants did more than observe. They invested in infrastructure, lobbied for privileges at Mongol courts, and set up permanent agencies to process captives and extend credit. Venetian notaries formalized slave transactions. Venetian galleys moved cargo and captives side by side. This was not a peripheral market, it was a pillar of the Eurasian economy. Slavery was also a weapon. Mongol campaigns often targeted cities and regions that posed commercial threats to the Venetian system. The fall of rival trade centres, Sinope, Trebizond, Baghdad, Aleppo and Buda opened corridors for Venetian access while simultaneously feeding the slave supply. When Mongol forces burned and depopulated these cities, Venice stepped in to absorb the profits and redirect traffic through its own networks. Every raid collapsed a rival. Every captive was counted in ducats. Venice and the Mongols did not merely cooperate, they co-engineered the dismemberment of Eurasia's older trade order and replaced it with one they could control. Behind the contracts and port registries stood an engine of violence, and Venice helped keep it running. Under Mongol rule, bullion moved in loops, and Venice was the system's axis. During Kublai Khan's reign, foreign merchants entering China were required to use government-issued paper money. Gold and silver were centralized in state treasuries, and attempts to trade in precious metals directly could be punished severely, even by death, as Marco Polo noted. This policy helped solidify state control over currency while restricting bullion from circulating. At the same time, silver became essential for taxes and wages and border trade. Eastern silver demand consequently surged. Meanwhile, Europe had seen a dramatic increase in silver output from mines in France, Bohemia and Germany. This corresponded with rising demand for gold coin and reserves by European monarchs. These factors, together with likely Florentine and Venetian manipulation, drove the gold-silver ratio from about 8-1 in 1275 to 15-1 by 1325. In the East, the ratio held steady around 10-1 in the 14th century. To capitalise upon this and its strategic location, Venice mobilised the flow of silver from European mines in Bohemia and Germany eastward to Mongol-controlled cities like Tabriz and Trebizond. There, standardised Venetian silver ingots, called sommi, were exchanged for gold tanga, Mongol bullion that was then shipped westward. The result was a closed loop with one open drain. Europe's silver flowed out, Venice's gold reserves swelled. This slide just illustrates the sheer profit of such a trade. Let's say a Venetian merchant acquired 150 ounces of silver in Europe in 1325 with a gold-silver ratio of 15-1. Those 150 ounces of silver would only buy 10 ounces of gold. But if the merchant took that silver east to a Mongol port, where the ratio was 10-1, those same 150 ounces of silver would buy 15 ounces of gold. If the merchant then repatriated that gold back to Venice and exchanged it for silver, it would then end up with 225 ounces of silver, giving a 50% gross income. This kind of margin, when scaled across shiploads and repeated voyages, made bullion arbitrage one of the most lucrative and geopolitically influential trades of the 14th century, especially for Venice, which controlled key ports and supply routes. According to Frederick Lane, between 1325 and 1350, Venice may have exported up to a quarter of Europe's total silver output. This was not a mere outflow, it was a hemorrhage. France's own mint master estimated that 100 tons of silver had left the country for the land of the Saracens. European economies were already under enormous strain before the plague arrived. The silver had largely vanished, the credit system had fragmented and cracked and broken, and the reserves were gone. And yet, while the eyes of Europe fixated on Florence, its banking crisis, possibly the largest economic crisis ever, and its apparent ruin, Venice kept operating in the shadows. Its financial machinery remained intact. Its merchants embedded in Mongol ports ensured the bullion kept flowing, even as Europe buckled, a perspective reinforced by the book Trade, Wealth and the Black Death. Venice, which was formerly aligned with the papacy, was not a junior partner in the Mongol alliance. It was the dominant force. It steered flows, managed risk, and extracted value on a continental scale. The Mongol Empire supplied the muscle, Venice supplied the system. Trade was controlled through vulnerable choke points that funneled terror, extraction, and finance. This extractive, exploitative system drained inland regions, sending wealth to coastal elites, while stripping labour and food from rural areas. Florence's banking collapse was closely linked to this extractive Mediterranean financial network, dominated by Venetian interests. These economic stresses, combined with warfare and forced population displacement, weakened communities, making them extremely vulnerable. The plague is said to have spread rapidly through these trade routes, hitting already fragile and malnourished populations hard. Venice's elites protected their wealth, but the global population faced massive depopulation between 1200 and 1400, as we can see here. This system did not simply collapse by chance, it created conditions that made widespread death and disruption inevitable. The reality appears that it was an engineered depopulation through terror, extractive finance, and systemic fragility. The result was a destabilization of Europe for generations thereafter. Bizarrely, a depopulation that mainstream media now seems to celebrate. The Mongol-Venetian world order offers more than a tale of wealth and collapse. It serves as a warning. Systems built for maximum profit and minimum resilience may thrive in calm times, but they shatter upon pressure. The lessons of the peasantry that survived and even thrived remain as relevant today as in any point in history. Hard reserves mattered. Grain, salt, seed, and animals stored locally saved lives when markets collapsed. Land was leverage. Those with access to land outside feudal control could feed themselves and others. Survival came through self-reliance, knowledge, and collective strength, not independence. Timeless lessons, I'm sure you'd agree. Thanks so much for joining me. Do consider subscribing, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.